This famous phrase, and I want to see if you...
To put the map down and look around where you actually are, because the real world is quite different than what's on the map.
Great.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Jones, everybody. And so the idea is that we all have these great theories, especially in the world of life coaching and psychology. We have all these great theories of human behavior, how people work, how relationships work. But the map, the theories, are always different than the real life experience of what it's like to really sit down with somebody and really get their world. And really take a moment of the art of getting somebody's world and what happens in that exchange. And yet, I also want to put in a plug that maps are important. That actually, to get to know a territory, maps are actually helpful also. And so with that, I wanted to go over one of the coaching maps that I use sometimes when I'm assessing where someone's at, whether it's in their business or in their life direction or relationship, etc. So I'm going to go over one of the maps today that I use, and I'll show you how I use that as an assessment tool. Okay. So basically, there's a guy named Fritz Perls who really studied human behavior very closely, and he noticed that everything that we do can be broken down into a series of actions. And so this is what he noticed. And I'll just take an example of if you're wanting to drink some water, a really simple example. So what happens is, and he calls this the cycle of experience. So how experience actually gets to happen. And so first thing that happens with us as human beings is we have a sensation. So thirst occurs in the body. So first we have the sensation. Secondly, what happens is we start to become aware, oh, I'm thirsty. So first is just a basic emotional or physical sensation. Secondly, our mental body kicks in and we actually start to translate that. Oh, I'm thirsty here. The third step is what's called a mobilization of energy. So what happens is we start to brainstorm and try to come up with a plan on how to actually quench our thirst. So, oh yeah, I want to get some water in the fridge. Oh, wait a minute, but this is San Francisco. I want filtered water. So that's not going to work. I need to go downstairs into the cafe down there and get some filtered water. Oh, okay. So this is all brainstorming and creating. And then what happens is we finally get to the point of taking action. And so we actually literally get off the couch, go downstairs, get the filtered water, come back to our apartment, and we've taken action. And then what happens in the cycle of experience is we finally have contact. And the moment of contact is when we actually get our need met. So we actually have that feeling of being satiated, that full moment of contact. And so after we have contact, then we eventually withdraw. We're not always in contact the whole time, just drinking the water, but eventually we need to put the water down. And so what's interesting is every part of life has a form of contact and withdrawal. There's summer and there's winter. There's all the times that we come together and then we separate. And that's the part of the whole huge experience of the cycle of experience. Now if you take this into a business world or a business strategies, and you see how does this translate actually as far as, let's say, sales calls or developing my business? And then for me as a life coach, can I start to diagnose and assess where people are getting stuck on this cycle? Because what happens is all of us eventually get stuck somewhere on this cycle of not fully getting our need met. And think about all the times that you actually have not gotten your needs met in relationships or in the satisfaction of your business or your career development, your life direction, etc. Think about the different places where you might be getting stuck. And I'll reveal mine as well. So here we go. So let's say you're wanting to build your business up and you need to make more sales calls, for example. So what happens is you might have this sensation of anxiety. Like, okay, I need to do more for my business here. I haven't been putting myself out there. So you just have this anxiety. Secondly, you start to notice that. Some people actually get a block here where they're not actually noticing their experience. And so they just are flooded with anxiety, but they're not even aware of that. And they're just operating from that place. They're trying to relate from that place, but they don't even know that they're even anxious. So in this place, this is where I might actually help people ground and do a lot of relaxation techniques and whatever it might be to get them centered in their body and get them centered in their own experience first. There's a saying, you can only start from where you're at. So they first have to realize where they're at in the beginning. Oh wow, I'm totally anxious right now, or whatever the experience is, or stressed out, etc. So once you start making the sales call, or first you're aware of the anxiety and whatnot, and then what happens is a lot of people start getting stuck in this place of mobilization of energy where they don't realize the next steps, or they might actually have a lot of great ideas. This is actually very common in what I call the entrepreneurial blunder, where a lot of people in here have so many great ideas, but they actually don't know how to put it into action. And this is one of the biggest things that I do in coaching is how do you actually translate your genius? How do you leverage your genius factor? So all these great ideas that you might have for your business actually don't really account for much unless you can put them in real tangible results here. And so what are some of the action steps that you actually need to take to make your business manifest? And so a lot of brilliant people get stuck here with a lot of creative ideas, but they don't know how to translate that. And then the next step would be, once you figure out a strategy plan and coaching on the best next steps and the best, most efficient actions to take, the next step would be actually doing it and going out. And sometimes as a life coach, I actually act as an accountability partner for people. And that's one thing that's very helpful when someone has some kind of support or a coach to actually check in with and say, hey, I made my 5 sales calls today. I just wanted to let you know that. So I have a guy right now who does that. He literally is doing a daily phone call with me in the afternoons and just giving me his progress report. And it's really helpful because it holds him accountable, because he knows himself enough to know that he's working on his own self-motivation right now, where he's needing that extra person to check in with in his life. And so that's one thing that I offer sometimes is daily emails or phone calls to really help my clients move to the next level that they're wanting to get to in their business, for example. So once you do your calls or talk to the people you need to talk to or whatever action it is, then you're finally getting the experience of contact, where you finally land that client and you learn how to close business, which is also something that I work on as a coach here as well. It's great to take action, but the important thing is to actually be able to close business. So you're not just making all the calls, but you're learning actually what it entails to be in a relationship with your client, so much so that you've gained their trust and you've actually built a working relationship. And so that's the piece around here. And actually where I get stuck personally a lot in my own business and whatnot is around this area. So what this looks like for me is I'm great at coming up with creative ideas for my business. I'm great at taking actions, but I don't just stop there. I want to keep taking more actions, and I actually don't allow myself the enjoyment of full contact. So how this looks is, I led a men's retreat in Costa Rica a month and a half ago, as a lot of you know, and even right when the retreat was over, I was already thinking about the next retreat. I actually wasn't allowing myself to just enjoy what I just finished and created, this amazing, profound experience. So right away I'm already thinking about, oh, next year we're going to do this again, and this is how it's going to look. So that's the place where I personally get stuck. And so the last place is, once we've had the contact, we've established our business and closed it, then we get a chance to actually withdraw, and that's a time to take stock, to actually integrate and learn what we've done. And a lot of times people don't make the time to actually integrate. And maybe you get to learn at this point with me as a coach what worked and what didn't work, and what strategies do you have moving forward. The same thing would happen in cycles of relationships also, whether someone's looking for a partner or they're looking for their aliveness in their relationship. And there might be places where they get stuck along this path also, where they might stop taking action in building intimacy and those kinds of things, or they might have some areas where they're really not getting to manifest their creativity or even think of outside the box of their usual habits and patterns of their relationship. So this can be applied in almost any walk of life, and I often use this with clients when I'm assessing where are their blockages, and then going in deeper and exploring what's that about. So they get to clear the obstacles that are in their way of getting their needs met, whatever they are, whether it's financial, romantic, etc. So that's a little snippet of what I do. I think I have a minute or so for questions.
Right.
Any questions?
Why can't we just stay from mobilization of energy to contact all the time? Why do we need these two tails?
So this is the part that you like.
Tasmanian devil.
I mean, I know I'm broke. I have this awareness. And now I'm activated. Why can't I just stay where the action is?
Stay at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, and I'm not comparing you to this, but what's interesting is addicts, for example. I'm not comparing you to that, but addicts only want contact. They want contact, and they're actually not able to withdraw.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, this is actually a part of the cycle of life. Is we can't just be contact junkies, whether that's with another person or a substance or whatever that might be, or some kind of adrenaline high or whatever. But we actually need the experience of integrating our experience and taking a break and letting that land.